What's up guys, welcome to the channel. Today I will be showing you guys how I animated the clip that you just saw, and along the ways I'll reveal some tips and tricks that I use when animating with the Rough Animator app. So this is actually how I like to start most of my animations, just with a rough sketch. This way I can really get a feel for the physics and the motion, and that way if I need to change anything, I haven't already committed to a super detailed picture that I will have to animate again. It's just a huge time saver, even though it takes a little bit more time in the beginning. So here you see me making use of the lasso tool a lot. I pretty much use this whenever I can. If a picture doesn't change from frame to frame, I'll oftentimes just lasso it, rotate it, move it, stretch it a little bit if I need to. That way I can save a lot of time by not having to redraw every single part of the body whenever I'm making animations like this. So definitely use it whenever you can. So here you can see me using the cycles feature. Definitely use this anytime you have any motion that is repetitive or cyclical. It's really good for like walking animations, anytime you have something spinning, like maybe a rocket. In this case, obviously it's just a punching animation where he's kind of doing the 1-2, but instead of having to redraw that same cycle 4 times, I can just do the first 2 and then it restarts and you can get more time out of the same amount of drawings. So it's definitely super useful. So here you can see that I'm actually beginning to fill in with detailed drawings for each character. Oftentimes I like to piece this out, breaking it up into the legs, the upper body, sometimes even breaking the arms apart too, and the head. And then I'll usually come in and do feet and hands after, just because often they're a little bit easier to do after the fact. The reason that I like to separate these different parts of the body out is so that in case I want to do something where you're either bending at the hips, or your legs are doing something but your body's staying the same, that way I can use the lasso tool and not have to accidentally get any of the legs or the unwanted parts of the drawing in the lasso, and it makes it much easier to edit down the road. here I started off drawing a face, did not like the way it looked, and switched to a helmet. And I don't think there's really anything wrong with that. I'm not especially good at drawing faces. It's something I should probably work on more. But it's kind of just as a rule of thumb, any ounce of detail you add in one frame has to be added for every single consecutive frame. And so sometimes simplifying things down so that you can focus more on the important part, which in this case is the action, can definitely be beneficial and a huge time saver. So here I start adding the feet and the hands in, and as you can see, they're pretty much just blobs. And I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. It's really not the focus of the shot, and it makes it way easier to do than having to draw individual fingers or fists, and it's very easy to just copy and paste with the lasso tool. So here you can see me adding kind of a opaque overlayer to the shield. The effect I was going for here was kind of that like the shield was weakening as it was taking hits. And this is kind of a quick and dirty way of doing it. I think probably a better way looking back would have been to export the frame or the layer separately and then animate something in After Effects that just got brighter and brighter over the little period of time there so that it looked like it was fading to white. But this works. So this animation is definitely my favorite type of animation. In this case, pretty much every single frame is based 100% on the frame before it. It just is really natural, really easy to do, and it ends up giving a really good result. So this is where I start adding in the motion blur. I never really learned how to do this from anywhere or from anyone. This is just kind of how I started doing it. I think there's probably a lot of ways that you can do motion blur. This is just kind of how I do it. In general, what I try to do is just look at the previous frame and then I will kind of add the blur to look like it's coming from that previous frame into the next frame. So if there's a large movement, you're gonna have more blur, and if it's a smaller movement, there's less blur. And if the movement's too small, I won't even add blur at all because you wouldn't have that in a real camera. So that's kind of how I go about things. last thing I do here is add in some camera shake. This kind of adds more impact to the main punches and to the big explosion. I think you can also do this with movement, so you could do up and down wiggle, or you can do rotation wiggle, or even a combination, depending on how much or how little camera shake you want. This was kind of my first time experimenting with it, and it turned out pretty well, so I'm happy with the way it looks. Alright, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to subscribe. I'll be posting a lot of short clips and tutorials on hand-by-hand animations. See you next time.